Hello guys, how are y'all doing today? Today we'll be discussing about Lorna de Cervantes. She is a Latin and Native American writer who writes poems based on her ethnical beliefs. She is a strong-minded individual who has never been afraid to speak out against the prejudiced society she's living in. Born in San Francisco on August 6, 1954, and raised in San Jose, she was a small-town native that perpetuated the art of poetry by making it a point to discuss about her cultural values, beliefs, and ethnics of what she saw going on in her everyday life. She made poems such as From the Cables of Genocide, poems on love and hunger, and Emplumada, which took off her career and made her the face of Hispanic poetry after winning several awards such as the American Book Award in 1981 and the Leela Wallace Reader's Digest Writers Award in 1995. She was co-editor of Red Dirt, a cross-cultural poetry journal, and she also published work that has been introduced in various anthologies, including Unsettling America, an anthology of contemporary multicultural poetry, No More Mass, an anthology of 20th century woman poets, also After Aslan, Latino poets of the 90s, pieces like Beneath the Shadow of the Freeway help stimulate this woman's career and bring brighter ideas to the table when it comes to talking about social issues. Considered one of the major Chicana poets of the past 40 years, she has been described by Alurissa as probably the best Chicana poet active today. Her parents raised her and her brother speaking English exclusively in the home to avoid racism, cultivating her community at that time. Her inability to speak Spanish kept her from completely connecting to her heritage and fueled the writing of her later poetry. Her brother's part-time job at the community library gave Cervantes access to writing by Shakespeare, Cervantes, Shelley, and Bryan, who became major influential roles in her writing. By the age of 15, she had compilated her first collection of poetry. Cervantes became the associate professor at the University of Colorado in Boulder in August of 1988 and served that position until 2007. She considers herself to be a Chicana writer, a feminist writer, and a writer who focuses her attention on social and political issues of the world. In 2006, she published Drive, the first quartet, which was a selection of new poems arranged as 5 books that spanned over 2 decades. The collection had previously only been available in small magazines and literary journals. This work was considered a landmark work by Martin Espada. It demonstrated Cervantes' constant concern with social injustice, radical politics, self-identity, and woman-centered artistic and intellectual activity.
I love San Antonio. I love Texas. I love Tejanas. And I love Tejanos. I do not love the version of Texas history. I do not love the version of history I was given when I was in high school 40 years ago. 30 years ago, I celebrated the publication of my first book, Emplumada. After I had given a poetry reading and was a visiting writer at Yale University. I was 21 years old, barely 21 years old. Couldn't even really drink yet. And 40 years ago, I am celebrating or commemorating my high school teacher asking me what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I said, I want to go to college. And she said, oh, what level? I said, PhD. And she said, oh, where do you want to go? I said, University of California, Santa Cruz. And she said, oh, what do you want to be? And I said, a university professor. And she just about swallowed her tongue. And right away she spit out at me, you are not college material. You will only fail. I do not think you should apply to Yale University or any university because you will only fail. This was based on nothing but the fact that I was Mexican American.
In the Journal of International Women's Studies, Edith Vasquez wrote that Cervantes steadily produced a body of poetry which insists on the historical reckoning of injustices committed against her Mexican and Native communities, by extension other populations who have been subject to violence, genocide, or oppression. Her poetry also abounds with poignant verbal images of female personas such as survivors, interlocutors, visionaries, and leaders who assert agency in unexpected places and by unexpected means. Cervantes is still active in writing poetry today and plans to be as long as possible. Thank you.